Parker, all right. I'll have you come up first. All right, thanks for making your way down to your seats. We'd like to get started. And welcome to those of you that are online as well. But before we start with our assembly today, welcome to the first part of Alumni Weekend. I know some of you guys are quite busy with what's happening this weekend, so we thank you for all that you are doing to make this weekend happen for our alumni and for our current students. But before we get started, I want to invite Michaela Lazarus to come up. She's got a couple of announcements for some events that are coming up.
Hey guys, just a quick announcement that this Sunday is the color run, and it is still open for students to sign up until the day of. On the day of, you can show up to the field, the soccer field, and it's around the concession stand area that we will have our booth where you can come and sign up on the day of if you are still interested. There are still a lot of spaces left if you are interested in doing that at the student price. So please, please, please sign up, and don't forget that all proceeds are going to the refugees in Ukraine. Also, we're having a Spark competition on Wednesday next week. This competition is a pitching competition with cash prizes, And there will be a little mixer at the beginning. There's also going to be Chipotle that is going to be catered to us. So please come, it's free. Also, it is a great opportunity to get assembly credit. And yes, so please come. Also, we have an announcement from William and Cameron.
Hello, everyone. I want to invite you guys to another Enactus event happening on April 10th from 5 to 7:30.
So the event that we're going to be hosting is called Hillcrest Market. We had it last year and last semester, and it's a chance for student entrepreneurs to highlight their businesses and a chance for you to buy and support them.
This year, we're doing a little twist on it. We also want to extend the opportunity for you guys to come enjoy food from different cultures.
We have a lot of different options from Mexican, Caribbean, Filipino.
So on-campus students, that morning you can scan your card twice, and that'll give you a free meal that afternoon. And for off-campus students, it's a first come, first serve.
This event will take place near the covered seating near the cafeteria, and it will take place from 5 to 7:30 p.m., and we hope to see you guys there.
Thank you, William and Cameron. So dinner for residence hall students will be that night there, right? And for community students, you need to come see me if you would like to have dinner as well, and we'll try to work it out so that we can sponsor you guys as well. So we want to make this a big event for our Hillcrest Market. Also, if you guys could help me out, this morning we sent out an email to all the students for faculty and staff of the year. So if you guys could help us process that out, help administration work on that so that we can celebrate our faculty and staff of the year for this school year. So please go online, look at that, and do your best to make selections. You can choose 2 faculty of the year and 2 staff of the year so that we can honor them in the coming weeks. So our assembly today is brought to us by the Men's Residence Hall. So let's give Dean Will Iverson a hand. Hey, thank you. All right. And he'll get it started for us.
All right, good afternoon. Our speaker today, I had to bust out the note cards because his list of accomplishments is rather long, but despite all that, I knew him here at Southwestern as students, as classmates, and he is one of the kindest, most humble individuals, and it's no secret that he is my man crush, and he will probably become your man crush as well, but he hails from the DMV, so the district, Maryland, Virginia. He's a Washington sports fan. He went to Burton Academy, and from there he came to Southwestern, graduated in 2011, class of 2011. He went to Baylor College of Medicine, where he followed that up with residencies at the University of Miami, at Jackson Memorial Hospital, at the University of Washington. He is now an assistant professor at Loma Linda University and the attending physician at Arrowhead Orthopedics. And if that's not enough, he is currently enrolled in the Duke University Fuqua School of Business, earning his MBA. But despite all these accomplishments, despite being an incredible musician, basketball player, all-around athlete, despite all these accomplishments, when I asked him what he wanted me to introduce him as, he simply wanted to be introduced as a former SWAU student who really, really, really loved his time here. So please help me welcome Dr. Kofi Ajimon.
Well, it's too nice. He's much nicer than me. I was not very nice, especially on the basketball court. I'm sorry, Dean Tay. Hi, guys. My name's Kofi. Nice to meet you. I used to be a student here a long time ago. I had so much hair then, way more hair. Let's pray. Lord, thanks for bringing us here today. Please be with us. Help us to get to know you a little bit better, as well as each other. I ask in your holy name. Amen. All right. So today we're going to talk about things I don't do good. Things I don't do very good. Understand good is not an appropriate term. Good is an adjective. An adverb should say well, but we're going to talk about why we're saying that. So I was here from the years 2007 to 2011. That was a long, long time ago. In fact, I was just doing a little bit of math. And this is year 2022, right? So that means that seniors, raise your hand if you're a senior right now. You may not be, so we got a few. How many of you guys are 22 years old? Yeah, it's about 22. So you guys are usually born around the year 2000. If the senior is born then, that means a lot of the freshmen are born 2003, 2004. Raise your hand if you're a freshman here right now. How many of you guys are about 18 years old? 18. So you guys were born around 2004. I met Dean Tay back in 2003 when my family was moving down here, which means I've known Dean Tay longer than a lot of you guys have been alive. And that is probably the oldest thing I've ever said in my life. And I have to wake up every day and look at my bald head. And I feel very, very old every morning. And despite that, I feel even much younger. Well, that's a long time. And you'll soon learn, if you haven't already, that life is about learning things and applying it to the future. Sometimes the best teachers are going to be the experiences that are given to you or given to others. Some people like to say, experience is the best teacher. Oftentimes, that experience does not have to be your own. In fact, I learned mostly in life, it's best if those experiences are not your own and learning them from somebody else. And I was sure had a lot of experience. Some were good, a lot of them were bad. I remember a time leaving the basketball court cussing at one of my classmates, Lewis. He was cheating real bad in intramurals. It bothered me a lot. I remember swinging an elbow one time and breaking the nose of one of my classmates, Matt Cushman. I remember that. I remember yelling at my brother when he was fouling. Most of these things were on the basketball court. It was a recurring theme. I'm sorry, y'all. There's a lot of bad times here. But one of the times I remember that were most important was the time I left here with a great smile on my face because I realized that the 4 years I spent here were probably not going to be replicated anywhere else. And one of the most important tools I picked up was how to make other people feel comfortable around you. Oftentimes, we like to focus on ourselves when we meet new people, but it's often much helpful if other people help you feel comfortable around them as well. So we're going to talk about 10 things I don't do today. The first one I don't do very well is to stick out in a conversation. I don't stick out very well in conversations. And that's because I try to use my language to help other people feel more comfortable around them. You may notice that when you're speaking to someone, you've ever been talking to somebody, and they're using a lot of big words all the time. We're like, I'm not sure what you're talking about. These words are too big. I don't understand what you're saying. Slow down so I can understand what you're saying. Makes you feel inferior. Doesn't make you feel very good at all. But still, you try to talk up to them and make it seem like. Have you ever talking to somebody else where sometimes you feel like you're maybe a little smarter than them? And so sometimes you're using big words that they don't really understand. How do those conversations go? Usually don't go very well because you're not making them feel very comfortable. I tried to learn to use language to meet people where they are. A good example of that was the title of this talk here. We're talking about things I don't do very good. And I use that title because good is a phrase that a lot of people use when they don't really understand the English language as well as other people do. Whenever I'm speaking to someone and their language is not as well as mine, I kind of try to meet them where they are. That's because I want them to feel comfortable where they am. In life, it's a lot easier when people are feeling more comfortable where you are. So it's easy for that there. There's a verse that goes along with that as well. This verse, look at it here, it's 1 Corinthians 9, 19 through 23. It says, "For though I'm free from all men, I've made myself a servant to all, that I may win the more. And to the Jews, I become a Jew, that I may win the Jews. To those who are under the law, as under the law, so I may win those who are under the law." The whole point Paul's trying to make is that sometimes you're going to have to modify your behavior and modify the way you speak to help other people feel well to you. So whenever I'm in a conversation, I try not to stick out too much. I try to make other people realize that, hey man, we're not that different. We're about the same. Hey, homie, we have similar experiences. This is how you can relate to people. And remember that relationships, the root word is to relate. So if you're trying to date someone, if you're trying to get a job at an interview, if you're trying to make a friend, it's important to relate to them. And sometimes make it more about each other, and the relationship and the commonalities you have between each other, not just yourself. Other things I don't do too well. So when I was here, it was a long 4 years. I lost a lot of hair when I was here as well. It was very hard. And I realized that I don't remember things very well at all. In fact, I remember my first class with Dr. Springer. Dr. Springer's one of my favorite people on earth. And we're struggling. This is OChem. It was OChem my sophomore year. It's very hard. There's a lot of pictures you got to memorize, a lot of long words that don't make sense. None of them are not even real, mostly English. It's a very difficult time. But unless you find a way to learn information in a short amount of time, you're not going to do very well in these classes. I quickly realized that I can't really memorize things very well. Some people can look at a page of information and really just acquire it. Don't you hate those classmates? Those guys do not even seem like they're trying very hard at all, but still they're dominating. I was never one of those people. No, not at all. In fact, I had to carve myself a little hole in the library and really learn how to memorize a lot of things. I remember one time taking Western art. There was a bunch of facts you're going to have to learn over. And I said, I can't memorize this. Who knows who painted what picture when? So I devised a way for myself to memorize large quantities of information just by sticking to it. And again, it's not because I'm very smart. It's not because I can do things very well. But I figured out that if I'm going to have to acquire the skills I need to do, I really, really, really have to apply myself and really maximize on things I can do well to make sure the things I can't do well can kind of measure up to that distance. That is to say, whatever you do before you graduate, after you graduate, as you go through life, things are going to be difficult. And in fact, our society tends to reward the more difficult things you can do. You have to find a way to memorize and learn things in an appropriate way that can stick to it. No one gets through difficult classes without a lot of stress. Find a way, figure out a way. There's study tools, there's Anki decks, I think it's called Chegg Steady flashcards, but figure out a way. The most important thing I learned when I was here was learn how to learn. At the beginning of the class, make yourself a syllabus. Base it off the class's syllabus and figure out how you're going to attack each learning point. If you're like me and you can't really memorize things very well, figure out a strategy to apply yourself to memorize the facts you need to do. The worst thing you can do is to just quit and say, hey man, I don't understand this. This is too hard. This math is too many numbers. This math class doesn't even have numbers anymore. I can't do that. You got to find a way to get through it. And once you realize that learning really isn't about what you bring to what the table has there, but what you're going to bring to the table, that's when you can really apply yourself to really doing well in these classes that may seem to be way over your head. There's a verse that goes with that as well. How convenient. It's Isaiah 65, verse 17. It says, for behold, I create new heavens and a new earth, and the former shall not be remembered or come to mind. Focusing on the goal of new heaven and new earth really helps you forget about the things that you don't know and focus on the things that you do know. So one thing I don't do very well, that's remember things. So I learned how to apply myself to really figure out a way to learn things so that instead of just recalling facts, I'm learning actual information that I can apply to the future. Number 3, tie knots. The thing I don't do well is tie knots. Right now I work as a type of doctor who ties a lot of things together. Who here has broken a bone before? Anyone? I've broken several bones. Good. Sometimes when you break a bone, you have to do this thing called surgery. And surgery is really gross. It can be really messy for a lot of things. But as you pair things together, you have to tie these things called stitches. Anyone who's gotten stitches today? It seems pretty cool. People are putting needles in your skin. They're tying these knots together. But you'll notice that there's a lot of knot tying that goes on that isn't, it's a little more complicated than tying your shoe. When I grew up, I figured, hey man, if I can tie my shoe, I'm going to be in life, get in life. So I don't need to learn how to tie knots. It doesn't really matter. There's a little thing called Pathfinders. And before that, there's a little thing called Adventurers. I didn't even get through Adventurers. As soon as we got to the part where we had to tie knots, I said, this is done. I have no reason to do this. I'm never going to tie knots. Who cares about tying knots? And now I tie hundreds of knots every week the rest of my life. So when you're starting something like medical school and you realize you can't tie knots, and you're going to have to tie knots for the rest of your life, you're going to have to figure out a way to tie knots. All that to say, everything you try to do, not everything, a lot of things you try to do in your life that are going to be difficult are going to be far above your actual skill set. LeBron James was not born knowing how to shoot a basketball. His hands were way too small. He couldn't really shoot. He couldn't dunk. He had to acquire the skills. And even though he had some gifts there, one of his gifts were not naturally dribbling a basketball. He had to learn how to do all of these things. Practice a lot at things you don't know how to do very well, if you know you're probably going to need to do them in the future. Say it again. There are a lot of things you don't need to really practice very much if you're not going to use them. But if you can see in the future that you're going to need to have to do it, you're going to do it. If you're going to want to drive for Uber Eats, it's important to learn how to drive well. You're going to have to learn how to change lanes with your signal to avoid tickets. You're going to have to learn to not drive over the speed limit too far. Learn how to acquire these skills, because if you don't, it's going to be a rough time. Skills that typically don't come, again, out of nowhere. Even if you're as gifted as LeBron James, there's still things you're going to have to learn how to do. So figure out a way to practice and practice and practice. Work diligently to acquire those skills. So if you don't really work at it, it's not going to come by itself. There's a verse that goes with that as well. This one's 2 Timothy 2, verse 15. It says, be diligent to present yourself approved to God, a worker who does not need to be ashamed. Be diligent. That's the most important part. Be diligent. These things are not going to come by themselves, and that's perfectly fine. If it was easy, not many people would be trying to do it. Because it's difficult, it becomes valuable. So one thing I really don't do well is learn how to tie knots. In fact, today, I don't even really tie them that well. But I can still get them through, and I can get them down because I practice a lot at them. What else do I do? Stick to diets. Dean Tay, when he saw me today, said that I had lost some weight. He was absolutely right. I've lost a ton of weight, thankfully, and that's because I had a lot of room to grow. I used to go through school, man, those diets don't get us as well as they do. One thing I really don't do well is stick to diets. I can learn how to cook, but why? When I can just purchase food that's cheaper and tastes good anyway. Importantly, most of you might not have the same terrible food habits when you leave this place. As much as we try to teach you to eat good food, it's not going to happen. You're going to leave, and you're going to have your own apartment, or be in your own little graduate school program. You're going to eat a bunch of crap, just like I did. And soon you're going to realize sticking to a diet is not that hard, because salad doesn't taste as good as Taco Bell. So it's important to learn that if you want to make a conscious change, you're going to have to work at it consciously. There are two terms you can use to actually make a change in your life. I like to say change things cognitively and physically. Instead of sticking to a diet, make a conscious change to figure out a way to eat food well. Not stick to a diet, but eat food well. If you're sticking to a diet, that simply means that there's some type of restriction you're going to place on yourself, so you're not eating it. So you're going to temporarily try to eat food better for a short period of time. However, if you can cognitively decide to say, hey man, I need to be eating food better, and then physically place good food around you oftentimes, you're not just doing a diet now, you're making a lifestyle change. So when I say I don't really stick to a diet, it's important because dieting's not really going to work very well. Lots of studies have shown that dieting tends to fade unless you can attach it to an actual lifestyle change. And the way to make a good lifestyle change is to use your mind to figure out a way to physically make it easier for you to do it. Exercise is something I used to do a lot. Despite me fouling people for years and years when I was playing basketball here, I still love to play basketball. I don't get to play it as much, so instead I go to the gym and run around with young people as they laugh at me on the treadmill, sweating my life away. It's really hard at the end of a hard day of work to try to get to the gym. And so, instead of just whining and going to sleep, you have to find a way to make going to the gym more convenient to do. So a lifestyle change. So what I do now is under my scrubs at work, I usually wear my workout clothes so that at the end of the day, I have zero excuses. My sneakers that I actually work out in, I work in as well. That's the benefit of wearing scrubs. It's really great. It's great work shoes. So after the end of the day, I can simply get all the way to the gym and just take off my scrub shirt and simply put the shorts on and get out to the gym. If you make it really easy to make a lifestyle change for yourself, it's much easier to go ahead and make that change. If you're going to be trying to eat better, just simply put a lot more healthy food around you and just don't go to the stuff that's not going to be bad. I still mess up. I had Chick-fil-A yesterday. My girlfriend's vegetarian. She watched me eat Chick-fil-A. It's not that healthy, but it's hard for me to make these changes. It's important to realize if you're going to make a change, be diligent about making that change in a conscious way. There's a verse that goes with that as well, Daniel 1, 12 and 13. It says, please test your servants for 10 days. This is when Daniel and the three Hebrew boys were making these changes. We're talking about how they're going to improve their diet. So let us make those changes for 10 days. Give us vegetables and water to drink. Then let their parents be examined before you. What they did was tie their diet to some type of motivational stream. And so they said, hey, man, if we're really healthy after these 10 days, you'll be able to see it for ourselves. And if not, we will be punished. They made a conscious effort to say, put some restrictions on themselves. And they put some real punishment there as well. All that to say, instead of trying to stick to a diet, make a lifestyle change. Lifestyle changes sounds more aggressive and more mature because it is. It's going to require cognitively and physically making a change to your life to something that's going to be a little bit more positive. What else don't I do very well? Another thing I don't do very well is balance on one leg. If I were to stand on one leg right now, I'd fall over really quickly. That isn't to say I'm not athletic. Even though I'm not very athletic, my balance is absolutely terrible. There's a young man over here named Will Iverson. Have you heard of him? This is the type of person here who's good at basically every sport. I remember when we were had Olympics several years ago. Will Iverson was dominating as usual, and we thought, all right, Will's gonna do all the things. We know that he's faster than us. We know he can shoot better than us. We understand he can throw things far. Then he picked up a javelin. You guys ever thrown a javelin before? Most people haven't thrown a javelin. I'm sure Will Iverson has never thrown a javelin. This man grabbed that javelin. He threw that thing about 80 yards in the sky without even stepping back. Some people don't need to work as hard as others, and other people really do. His balance is natural. He doesn't need to work at it, but mine was not. The reason why I'm far less of a balanced and athlete as good as Will Iverson is because I don't rehab my injuries. When I was a freshman, I was playing sports. I rolled my ankle one time. I had a bad ankle sprain. It was really swollen, hurt a lot. Unfortunately, I thought I was a tough cookie, so I went back and played after a couple weeks of icing and elevating, and I was able to play and do okay. But now, to this day, whenever I try to go off one leg or really try to do anything off of one foot, my leg wobbles, it's not very confident, and I was ultimately just kind of come back down and take a flat-footed shot. And that's because I was never diligent enough to stick with the rehab necessary to rehab it. You see, when you injure any type of ligament, ligaments are basically strings that hold bones together, they're probably going to heal. They're either going to heal in the right spot or they're going to heal in the wrong spot. When it heals in the wrong spot, we call it a bunch of scar tissue. That's just weird tissue that's not doing what you want it to do. In order for things to do things appropriately, you have to do something called rehab, meaning a basic set of exercises to help things heal in the appropriate way. If you don't do that, the joint or the ankle or the finger or the knee is not going to heal properly. Then you end up with dysfunction. All that to say, the rehab takes way more of a commitment than really even trying to get back on the court to play. A lot of times people like to get hurt, like I did, just go back and try to play immediately, but you haven't rehabbed the injury. You need to stick to the rehab of the injury or it's not going to be able to get through. Playing basketball or playing any type of sport is more the fun part of the activity. The more difficult part is the commitment it takes to really do the work to make sure you can recover appropriately. That's to say that you're going to have to develop some type of commitment to follow through on your commitments. Not all things should be completed. I'm not saying that. Honestly, a lot of people say you should start whatever or finish whatever you start. I'm not going to lie, that's not a good way to live your life. There are a lot of things you're going to start and quickly realize, this is tough, this is not for me, and honestly, I'm not getting anything out of it. There's something else I need to be doing. That's perfectly fine, as long as you haven't put any major responsibilities or attachments to it. And if you're being honest with yourself, and that's not going to be of any clinical value to yourself. If it is going to be important to you, you need to finish on that commitment. There are these things called jobs you're going to have one day. And if you decide to sign a contract to be at that job, it's important that you actually follow through and show up on time. There are these things called marriages you're going to have to one day. And there's times where you're going to have to do things you don't want to do, engage in conversations that may be more boring than you're going to want to do. But it's important to follow through on your commitment to be a good partner for that, or it's not going to go very well. All this to say, just like rehabbing a sprained ankle is important to get back to balancing well so you can be as athletic as Will Iverson one day, it's important to follow through on the commitments you make to yourself, or at least things you determine are going to be important to you in your future. If you don't do that, you can end up quitting things and missing out on opportunities that may be really helpful for you going on. There's a verse that goes, this is my favorite verse of the day actually, it's Ecclesiastes 7, verse 8. It says, the end of a thing is better than the beginning. The patient in spirit is better than the proud in spirit. Focus on the end, and focus on the reason for that commitment. With the goal in mind, with an attention paid towards actually getting through the process, it makes the process of fulfilling that commitment much easier. So one thing I don't do well, and that is balance on one leg. That's because I fail to follow through on commitments that I don't see much value in doing. Don't be like me. Find some value in doing something and then follow through on your commitment. Number 6, one thing I don't do well is speak to people on the phone. Who else likes to text? You guys like to text rather than talk on the phone? Is there anything more annoying than you being in the middle of a text and then someone calls you? It could be your mother, it could be your father, doesn't matter. It's going straight to cancel. To be honest, my phone is always on Do Not Disturb. That's a very proud moment. In fact, for the past 3 years, I rarely even have my ringer on. I'll just see the missed call and call back if I want. If you look at my phone, there are a few favorites there. It's got my mom, my dad. I have 2 older brothers. I have my wonderful girlfriend, and then my boss. Importantly, those people call me, it'll ring, and I'll pick up. But other than that, it'll never pick up. I'm very sorry if anyone's tried to call me, or if you try to call me from this moment, it'll never be picked up. That's because I hate speaking on the phone. That's not because I'm a terrible person. It's just because I'd like to actually give people decent answers when questions are asked or discussions are had. So I text, and when I text, I try to text thoughtfully. What is thoughtful texting? If someone texts you and you're trying to communicate with them and they're asking you a question, should you A, give them a pretty bad answer that's short and doesn't really get to the point of it? 2, ignore them completely and don't respond to it? Or 3, stop everything you're doing and say the first thing that comes to your mind? None of those things. What you should do is probably be thoughtful and actually help them with what information they're trying to acquire. So instead of speaking on the phone when people call, I typically text them back and let them know, hey, can't talk right now. I want to give you a thoughtful response. Give me a moment. Yes, it is self-serving. Yes, it prioritizes your time over theirs. But the one thing you get out of it is being careful enough to give people the attention and information that they want. All that to say, one thing I don't do very well is talk on the phone. But I always try to help people out with the information that they're trying to get from me. If they're asking how they're doing, I say, hey man, doing okay, let me call you back. And maybe I'll call them back if there's some time. If they're asking me, hey, what was the answer to this or the third? I'll say, that's a long explanation. Give me a minute. I'm in the middle of something. Let me text you back. And then you text them back. So if you're like me and you really don't like speaking on the phone, such is life. We're in the information age. People don't like talking on the phone. If you're not going to overcome that bad habit, then find a way to text people back and communicate with people effectively. Let them know, don't ignore them now, let them know, hey, I would love to give you that, but it's going to require a long conversation. Give me a second. That way they know that you're giving them the attention they deserve, that you're actually trying to communicate with them. It seems like a weird point to belabor, but that's because, again, you're going to have something called a job one day. And there's going to be people texting you at times at which you don't want to talk. Instead of disrespecting them by not letting them or just ignoring what they're doing, let them know, I have received this message, and I'll communicate with you as soon as I can give you the information that you want. It'll probably go a long way. Next, what else do I do very well? Remember people's names. It's very hard for me to remember names. Names are basically labels we give each other, so, I mean, why are you going to remember them anyway? Importantly, though, people like those labels, and they like being called by their names. So it can become very awkward if somebody introduces themselves to you, you don't remember their name. Instead of memorizing lists of people's names and all these letters that I put together to describe people, try to form a connection with people. It's much easier to remember a person than it is to remember a name. So I do this thing when I'm at work. My name is Kofi. Apparently, since the age of 6, people can't say the word Kofi. They look at the name and they immediately think coffee, spelled wrong. So they say, hey, what's up, coffee? I'm like, hey, that's a good try. It's actually Kofi. I appreciate it. I don't know. If I hadn't seen my name, I would have probably said that as well. And I give them a chance. If they get it wrong again, that's perfectly fine. I correct them again. Hey, man, it's okay, Steve. My name's Kofi, but we'll get it next time. Nice to meet you, brother. But unfortunately, if they get it wrong a third time, I don't call Steve Steve anymore. I call him Esteban, or I call him Johnny, or I call him Rick, or I call him anything but his name. Because it's important to form this humoral connection with people, to realize, hey, man, if you're not going to get my name right, we are going to find a way for us to get it right. On the same token, there are people that introduce themselves to me every day. And if I can't remember their name, I always tell them, hey, man, your name is Steve. If I get it wrong again, call me Coffee. And call me Coffee every single time until I get your name right. Because it's important to be able to meet people, again, where they are, but to communicate in the way that they want to be communicated with. If you can form some type of relationship or even just a common collegial accordance with people you meet, even in passing, it helps you remember who they are. Find something to talk about. I've had the great benefit of living from DC and then Texas, rural Texas, then Houston, then Miami. You ever been to Miami? Miami is basically Latin America. It's amazing. It's very different than Texas. I lived in Seattle. Seattle's the whitest place on earth. There's like 8 black people in the whole city. And now I live in Southern California. These are very different and disparate places. And they're all over the country. So it's rare that I meet someone who I talk to for more than 30 seconds that hasn't lived in somewhere I've lived close to. And if it's anywhere near the Midwest, I just say I know people at Andrews, and it helps. The point is to find some way to connect to people anywhere. If you can find that, either about their shoes or the color of their hair or even the type of coat they have on, helps you remember who they are. And even if you can't remember who they are, I remember that guy, he had a jacket on that looked like mine, and his name was Jack. You find some way to connect to people. So one thing I don't do very well is remember people's names. So try to find a way to connect to them so that you remember people instead of just what their label is. Next one. One thing I don't do very well is let statements go unclarified. If you're like me, you don't like to get your point taken the wrong way. It's not that I become very argumentative. I actually hate arguments, and most of us do. Don't you hate being in an argument with people? My brother loves arguing. He's one of the few people I know who like to actually engage with strangers about things that they're not going to change their mind about. So it's important to be able to just talk to people and then move on. But unfortunately, sometimes you say the wrong thing, comes out of your mouth incorrectly. You don't want to get it unclarified. For instance, if I had said something wrong up here that offended my girlfriend, I would spend the next 3 hours trying to clarify what the heck happened. That's because it's not important to not things go unclarified. But instead of engaging in debates about what you actually meant, why not just take some time, think before you speak, and actually say clearly what you're trying to convey? It's much easier, what they say, like a pound of prevention is worth like 10 pounds of cure or something like that. If you actually take some time, be thoughtful about what you're going to say before you say it, it's rare that you're going to have to clarify what that thing is. In fact, even if you have to clarify it, it's perfectly fine because you got the gist of what you're trying to get across. One thing I don't do very well is let statements go unclarified. And that's because nowadays, as I'm older and wiser and have far less hair, I try to think about what I say before I say those words. So even if they come across the wrong way, it at least came close to what I was trying to make. I don't have to spend time backpedaling, clearing things up. What else did I do very well? Miss an opportunity to apologize. There's a time to, if you've wronged someone, one of the most powerful things you can do is say you're sorry. And there are good ways to say you're sorry. You're sorry sounds kind of sappy sometimes, so I prefer my bad, or my fault, bro, or oh, that's me. This one, especially in basketball, works the best. Oh, that one's on me. Throw a pass out of bounds, oh, my bad, bro. That one was me. Sometimes it wasn't even you, but still, don't miss the opportunity to apologize. It brings people closer to you. Humble yourself a little bit so that people are able to humble themselves as well. You shouldn't get this confused. You shouldn't walk around saying you're sorry for every little thing that happens, meaning you actually bump into someone, oh, I'm sorry, man, I'm sorry. That's weird, it makes you sound Canadian. They really apologize for everything. I'm sorry, does. Sorry, such is life. Canadians apologize way too much. But what you should do is if you've wronged someone, even if it's a small, true wronging, always apologize. Always apologize. Oh, I'm sorry. Do it heartfelt, in a heartfelt way. That really helps people connect to them, puts you in a way where people are able to communicate with you a lot better. So one thing I don't do very well is miss an opportunity to apologize. Say you're sorry anytime that you feel like you've wronged someone, even if it's as small as, man, that came across the wrong way, my bad. Or even if you did it in purpose, man, that hurt your feelings. I mean, I did. We're in an argument. I understand that, but still, that's wrong on me, man. No one wants to feel like the way I just made you feel. That's on me. It really helps. Next one. This is going to be my favorite one. It's going to be the last one today. The 10th thing that I don't do very well is dribble or shoot free throws. So there's a sport called basketball. We've talked about it a lot. At no point was I a good shooter in a game. At no point. There were times in practice I'd be dominating. There's a game we used to call the sevens. We killed the sevens. The sevens were great. But I still remember airballing 2 free throws in a row at Paul Quinn. I remember this. This was 2010. 2 free throws in a row, airball. Can you imagine how embarrassing that is? You think I'm sweating now. Just imagine. Everyone watching you, airballing free throws, it sucks. It's a bad feeling. It's awful. Other thing was dribble. I've never been a good ball handler. Not at all. A great passer. A good defender. I foul very well. But at no point could I dribble the ball. I've never crossed the soul up in my life. Just doesn't happen. It's not my game. So what do? Instead of leaning into those things, what you should do is lean away from your weaknesses. Earlier on, we talked about leaning into your strengths. I didn't really have much in terms of a good memory, so I leaned into things I can do, which is preparing how to put information in front of myself to be able to get those skills all together. Not just leaning into your strengths, but leaning away from your weaknesses. If you realize you're not going to be good at something, probably try to do it less if it's not an essential component of what you need to do. These things are nuanced, but they're important to pick up. If there's something you don't do very well that's not essential for you to do, find something you do well and lean towards that instead. Because I don't dribble well or shoot free throws, I don't shoot the ball anymore. I just don't. What I do is I pass the ball off nicely, I screen away hard. I rebound really well, I defend. Whenever I get the ball, I'm in a three-point stance, there's a time to dribble, I'm isolated, the court is wide open. I don't try to dribble the ball anywhere because I'm going to get ripped very quickly. Someone's going to steal that ball without much effort at all. So I call for a screen, and I go around the screen really hard. Play not only to your strengths, but away from your weaknesses. Again, if you know that you're not a good phone call person, text really, really well. If you know that you're not going to be the best person to cook a meal, you better know how to buy very well-made, healthy food efficiently and quickly. If you know that you're not going to be the person that cleans the room very well, take out the trash a lot. Find some way for you to be an asset in whatever situation you're in, especially if you're not very good at a lot of other things. So just to recap on these 10 things, I talked about things I don't do very well. First thing is to stick out in a conversation. Every time, yes, sure, we're all individuals. We all have our personalities. We all should be honored for who we are. But if you're speaking to a person, especially one-on-one, try to meet them where they are. They may be a lot smarter than you, a lot more handsome than you, taller, have a lot more hair than you. That's one thing. Or you may be the person who's in a higher status or position in life, whatever that means. Meet them where they are, because it's very much easier to have friends in this world than it is enemies, and friends are much more beneficial than enemies. Next thing is remember things. This is going to be difficult, especially as you're getting through finals. If you know that your memory is as poor as mine, find a way to acquire the information you need and for it to stick in your mind, whatever way that is. Spend time learning how to study. That's just not a basic thing of like sitting in a room. Find a way. Realize if I tie things to images, I need to make sure that I draw a picture to memorize information, whatever. Find a way to learn the information that you're gonna need to learn, because if you don't, the information is just gonna go right out of your head. Third thing is tie knots. I don't tie knots very well, but it's a skill that I absolutely have to have. So find a way to learn the skills that you need to do as well. Well, that's gonna be practice, 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 practice. If you know that you're gonna be a truck driver, you're gonna need to make sure you get out there, figure out how the truck feels, and practice driving trucks a whole lot before you know how to do it. If you're gonna be an accountant and you can barely use Microsoft Excel, you're behind. Right now you need to go on YouTube, figure out as many videos as you can to learn how to do spreadsheets really well, because a lot of your job's gonna be spreadsheets. Practice all these skills you're gonna need, because most of them are not gonna come naturally. You're gonna have to use them in the future. Fourth thing I don't do well is stick to a diet. I don't stick to a diet because diets are not lifestyle changes. They're short things we do for a short period of time to help us feel better, which is okay for a short period of time. If you've actually allowed to make a lifestyle change, maybe eat better, physically and cognitively make a change or make it easy for yourself to actually do something different in your life. For instance, if you're going to the gym, if you find it hard to go to the gym in the morning, maybe sleep in your workout clothes. Maybe put maybe put your alarm clock at the door where you have to get up and turn it out, and then you can just leave and go to the gym. Find a way to make these changes, lifestyle changes, so if it's something you don't want to do, you end up kind of doing it anyway. Fifth thing is balance on one leg. I don't balance well on one leg because my ankle's really weak, and I'm not a very athletic person because of it. Importantly, find a way to follow through on your commitments, like a rehab plan for an injury. It's important to follow through on the things that you know are going to be important to you to do. Because if you start getting flaky on things, eventually people stop trying to include you in things that you need to do. It's important to have those relationships where you're following on things that are important. Speak to people on the phone. I don't like to talk on the phone, so I text very thoughtfully. And the few times I do call people, they really appreciate it. I know it's a sad story, but it's important to do that. Learn to communicate well, and if you don't talk well on the phone, to communicate with those words very effectively. Remember people's names. Names are just labels we call people, so instead, remember who the person is. Find a way to connect with people, even if it's something as trivial as the shoes they have on. Find a way to connect with them, then you remember the person instead of what they call themselves, or what their parents called them. Let statements go unclarified. Though arguing with people is kind of random, try not to do it. What you should do is just think about what you say before you say it. That way, even if the point doesn't necessarily get across, it's at least close to the point that you wanted to do. Use your words carefully in that respect. Number 9, miss an opportunity to apologize. Never miss an opportunity to apologize. If you've wronged someone, say it quickly. Do it in a heartfelt way. My preferred text, mine is my bad, my fault. The hand gesture is what really gets it. That brings it home right there. You can say anything. You could insult someone and go like this, and they'll still feel good about it. So really try to bring that home. Lastly, things I don't do very well are dribble or shoot free throws. Those are not strengths of mine. So not only do I try to lean towards my strength, I'm leaning away from my weaknesses. If it's not a weakness that you're gonna need to build up, like tying knots or learning how to eat better, lean away from it. That's perfectly fine. Find things you know how to do instead and stick to them. The last verse I'll leave you with is Ecclesiastes 7, that same verse we came back to. One of my newfound favorite verses. The end of a thing is better than its beginning. The patient in spirit is better than the proud in spirit. Take your time with the goal in mind. A lot of people say, keep your eyes on the prize. That is important. You can enjoy the journey as it gets there, but the journey really not as great as the prize. Focus on the prize, and you'll be able to pick up the journey's little golden nuggets on your way there. Thank you guys so much.
Thank you so much. We just have a little something for you so that you can rep SWAU in Southern California and all your many and exciting places that you go. So we appreciate it. He will be here for a little bit. If you're an aspiring physician and you just kind of want to pick his brain about what med school's life or career paths and stuff like that, please search him out afterwards. But we have one more announcement. So Kyle, you have an announcement?
Hey guys, so one last announcement. The last Sabbath of this semester, April 23rd, Essay and Slide are going to be doing an event to the zoo. I'm sure you got an email about it or it's been on Instagram. The last day to sign up for that is Monday. It's a free event. You can bring your friends or your family. Just make sure to text me. My number is, if you look on the email, my number's at the bottom. So you can bring anyone, but you have to let me know beforehand. But go ahead and sign up. I need to know the amount of people who are coming by Monday. So yeah, that's about it. Thank you.
All right, have a great day.